Hi everyone, welcome to Chapter 2, Sociological Research for Sociology 101. I am your professor again, Angela Telosa, and I'm eager to talk to you this week about sociological research, which is really core to the principles of sociology. So in the chapters, what you read a lot about was how research really does affect what we know about society and what we know about what works. And so this example here sort of shows that sometimes conventional wisdom, like crime rates go up during a full moon, isn't really supported by the data. And scientific research is necessary to really find out what the conclusions are so that data and fact can in fact help inform society of how it should be governing its people. So what is the scientific method? Some of you may remember this very dearly from high school, as I do. And the scientific method basically has 6 parts. It starts with asking a question, researching existing sources, formulating a hypothesis or sort of a theory, designing and conducting a study, drawing conclusions from that, and then reporting results. So here, in this example, I should tell you a little bit about how the scientific method could be applied to thinking about safety. So your overarching question would be something like, what can society do to protect neighborhoods? You would conduct a literature review, which means that you would research existing articles out there and studies out there to find out what they say about this research question. You would do a hypothesis or a guess, an educated guess, which could be something along the lines that with greater police presence, the safer the neighborhood. And as in your reading told you, independent variable and dependent variable are factors that usually go into hypotheses. So in this case, the independent variable is greater police presence, and the dependent variable, or the thing that is affected by the police presence, would be the neighborhood. Next step is you would have to implement and design a study that really looks at what greater police presence is. How do you define it? How do you fund it? How do you implement it? So, for example, your definition of greater police presence could mean expansion of foot patrol officers, expansion of community events held by the police. It could be many different things. The next step is to draw conclusions from your study. So, how do you draw a conclusion? So you look at what the outcomes of your study were. So because of whatever expansion of work you did, these are the kinds of learnings that you made. For example, maybe you look at crime rate before and after greater police presence happens. Maybe you talk to people in the community to find out what do they think about people and criminal behavior. Because as you know, crime rate isn't always indicative. People don't always get arrested. So you have to really think about perceptions of the community and how they view how safe their neighborhood is. And then the last part of any scientific method is to be able to research, to take your research and write a report or draft an article or write a newspaper article. So this is the basic scientific method, and it's used countless times by sociologists in all the work that we do. What's also really important to keep in mind when you're conducting a research study is factoring these two sort of important concepts, reliability and validity. So basically, what the reading tells us is that no matter what research approach you use, researchers want to maximize the study's reliability, which refers to how likely are results to be replicated if the study is reproduced. So if it works here in Cincinnati, does it work also in Columbus, Ohio? If it works here in the neighborhood of Brownsville, does it also work in the neighborhood of the Upper East Side? Reliability increases the likelihood that what happens to one person will happen to all persons in a group or all people in a group. Researchers also look for validity. They want to make sure to know how well the study measures what it's designed to measure. So if you're measuring how safe a neighborhood is, you have to make sure that whatever you are saying is your test or your experiment to test if greater police presence can affect public neighborhood safety, you have to really make sure that that's the only reason that safety occurred. It's not like because of different factors happen. So, for example, in the full moon topic, the the idea like that crime rates go up during a full moon. Reliability in a study would have to show how the resulting experiment represents the average crime rate during a full moon. So does crime rate happen and how it's measured in the same way no matter where you are. And then validity would make sure that the study's design accurately examined what was it designed to study. So an exploration of adult criminal behaviors during a full moon shouldn't address the issues and not veer into other age groups, for example, since we're talking just about adults. Questionnaires are a common research method, and the U.S. Census is a well-known example. Another example of research method is the surveys, like used in American Idol. Allows many people in the audience to vote on contestants. And now even, like on American's Got Talent, as some of you may know, you can even text your answers, your votes. Sociological researchers travel all over to interact with their subjects. So this is really about participant observation and ethnography. So these are a list of the sort of 4 categories of research methods. The survey, which consists of questionnaires and interviews. There's advantages because it can help you get a lot of answers, but sometimes it's really time consuming. There's field work, which is sort of this idea of being in the field with your subject, and you're observing, you're doing participant observation, you're doing ethnography or case studies. It's really detailed in what information you can gather, also time consuming, and also qualitative data is very difficult to organize. But that doesn't mean any of these things cannot be done, it's just you have to be mindful of advantages and challenges. Experiment is a little bit more of a deliberate manipulation of social customs and mores. And then there's secondary data analysis. This is where you take data that's been created by other entities, like the government's data, or you research historic documents. And then you use that to inform whatever studies and outcomes you're looking to. But, sometimes the data, you have to look at the goal of data for something else may not be the goal of your data. And sometimes that data is hard to find. This is an interesting picture, just shows sort of how an ethnographer who is examining Jimmy Buffett and the way that his fans kind of have grown to him, becoming these quote-unquote parrot heads, sort of how some of their customs are wearing suits versus their day job, taking suits off and wearing leis and t-shirts. In this picture, we talk a lot about, well, is this person a waitress or is this person a sociologist conducting a study using observation? You really can't tell. Field research happens in real locations. What type of environment do workspaces foster? What would a sociologist discover after blending in? So you really got to think about how can you assimilate and really understand the subjects of your study? What can happen in places like an office that looks like this? In a classroom, this is a picture of a classroom in Muncie, Indiana, before these researchers, John and Helen Lynn, began researching this typical U.S. community. So they really, examined and looked at, where exactly are the subjects they want to study, and how can they sort of quote-unquote find a typical U.S. community. Sociologist Francis Hosenstein conducted an experiment to explore the correlation between traffic stops and race-based bumper stickers. So this racial profiling, as you know, is still a very hot topic today and it requires a lot of further research. So I wanted to take this time to just quiz you on a couple statements that came up. One is about value neutrality. So let's see. What statement here illustrates value neutrality? A, obesity in children is a result of parental neglect. B, 2003, states like Arkansas adopted laws requiring elementary schools to remove soft drinks. C, merely restricting children's access to junk food is not enough to prevent obesity. And D, physical activity and healthy eating are a fundamental part of child education. So, value neutrality. As you remember, this means like staying free of opinion. So if you're looking at all these kinds of different statements, let's see which one we think would really explain something that's value-free. Sociologist Max Weber, remember, said that we must establish value neutrality, a practice of remaining impartial, without bias or judgment during the course of a study and in publishing results. Sociologists are obligated to disclose findings without omitting or distorting significant data. So let's think about this question we had. Answer is B. States like Arkansas adopted laws requiring schools to remove soft drinks. The other statements show a little bit more judgment in there. Parental neglect, not enough to prevent obesity, and kind of singling out these two factors as being fundamental. Fundamental is a very subjective word as well. Next, which person or organization defined the concept of value neutrality? Easy. We already talked about it. Max Weber. Next, to study the effects of fast food on lifestyle, health, and culture, which group should a researcher ethically be unable to accept funding? Fast food restaurant, nonprofit, private hospital, government agency. Answer, fast food restaurant. Basically, if McDonald's is funding the study on whether or not eating McDonald's is healthy for you, there's no way that study can be neutral. Okay, now I'm going to show you a little bit on the story of Max Weber, who is one of the most influential founders of sociology. And so hold on for 1 second. Note again that this is the title of the article, of the video rather. So if you get cut off from it, you can always go there to find it.
Max Weber is one of the philosophers best able to explain to us the peculiar economic system we live within, called capitalism. Born in Erfurt in Germany in 1864, Weber grew up to see his country convulsed by the dramatic changes of the Industrial Revolution. Cities were exploding in size, vast companies were forming, a new managerial elite was replacing the old aristocracy. Weber spent his life analyzing these changes, and he developed some key ideas with which we can better understand the workings and future of capitalism. The standard view is that capitalism began as a result of developments in technology, especially steam power. But Weber proposed something more interesting, that what actually made capitalism possible was a set of ideas, and in particular, religious ideas. And not just any religious ideas. Capitalism was created by Protestantism, specifically Calvinism. In his great work, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, published in 1905, Weber laid out some of the reasons why he believed Protestant Christianity had been so crucial to capitalism. In Weber's analysis, Catholics have it relatively easy. They're able to confess their transgressions at regular intervals and can be cleansed by priests. But no such purifications are available to Protestants, who believe that only God is able to forgive anyone, and he won't make his intentions known until the day of judgment. Until then, Weber alleged, Protestants are left with heightened feelings of anxiety, as well as lifelong guilty desires to prove their virtue to a severe, all-seeing, but silent God. In Weber's eyes, Protestant feelings of guilt were diverted into an obsession with hard work. This was what he called the Protestant work ethic. The sins of Adam could only be expunged through constant toil. Not coincidentally, there were far fewer festivals and days of rest in Protestantism. God didn't like time off. Catholics had limited their conception of holy work to the activities of priests, monks, and nuns. But now, Protestants declared that work of any kind could be done in the name of God, even jobs like being a baker or an accountant. This lent new moral energy and earnestness to all branches of professional life. In Catholic countries, the family was, and often still is, everything. But Protestants took a less benevolent view of family. The family could be a haven for selfish and egoistic motives. For early Protestants, one was meant to direct one's selfless energies to the community as a whole, the public realm, where everyone deserved fairness and dignity. Protestantism and eventually scientific capitalism turned its back on miracles. Weber called this the disenchantment of the world. So prosperity wasn't to be thought of as something mysteriously ordained by God. It could only be the result